Life has a funny way of bringing people together when you least expect it. Sometimes the moments that change us forever happen on the most ordinary days, in the most ordinary places. This is one of those stories. Rachel had been walking the streets of Los Angeles for hours. Not because she had anywhere to go, but because staying still felt impossible. 3 months had passed since her mom died, and the world still didn't make sense. Every morning she woke up and for a split second everything felt normal. Then reality would crash down on her like a wave, reminding her that nothing would ever be normal again. Her mom had been her best friend. They did everything together. Movie nights every Friday, long drives with no destination in mind, deep conversations about life over coffee that had gone cold hours ago. Cancer took all of that away in what felt like the blink of an eye. One day her mom was there laughing at some silly joke. 6 months later she was gone. The grief counselor Rachel had been seeing kept telling her to be patient with herself. Healing isn't linear, the counselor would say, but Rachel didn't want to hear that. She wanted her mom back. She wanted to call her and tell her about her day. She wanted to hear her voice one more time. That November evening was particularly cold. Rachel had just left her therapy appointment and honestly, she felt worse than when she went in. Talking about her feelings wasn't helping. Nothing was helping. She pulled her jacket tighter and kept walking, not paying attention to where she was going. The streets of West Hollywood were busy as usual. People rushing past her, laughing with friends, living their lives like everything was fine. Rachel felt invisible, like she was watching the world through a glass wall. Everyone else was moving forward while she was stuck in this horrible moment that wouldn't end. She turned a corner and found herself on a quieter street. There were a few small shops and a cozy-looking coffee place with warm lights glowing through the windows. Something made her stop. Maybe it was the cold, or maybe she just needed to sit down for a minute. As she stood there trying to decide whether to go in, she glanced through the window. And that's when she saw him. At first she thought she was seeing things. But no, it was definitely him. Keanu Reeves was sitting by the window, completely alone, reading a book. He looked so normal, so ordinary, like any other person enjoying a quiet moment with their coffee. He wasn't surrounded by bodyguards or fans. Just him, a book, and a steaming cup of something hot. Rachel's heart started racing. Her mom had loved Keanu Reeves, not in a crazy fan way, but in a genuine appreciation for who he was as a person. She'd read every interview, watched every movie. She always said he seemed like one of the few genuinely good people in Hollywood. He treats everyone with kindness, her mom would say. That's rare these days. They had watched The Matrix together at least 20 times. Her mom would quote lines from it, laugh at the action scenes even though she'd seen them 100 times before. Just last year they'd gone to see John Wick 4 in theaters. It was one of their last good days together before the cancer got really bad. Standing there looking at Keanu through that window, Rachel felt something break inside her. All those memories came flooding back. Her mom would have been so excited. She would have insisted they go in, would have probably been too shy to actually say anything to him, but would have been thrilled just to see him in person. But her mom wasn't there, and that reality hit Rachel so hard that tears started streaming down her face before she could stop them. She tried to wipe them away quickly, embarrassed to be crying on a public street. But they kept coming hot and fast, blurring her vision. She stood there frozen, crying and staring through that window at a man her mom had admired, wishing more than anything that she could share this moment with her. It was such a small thing seeing a celebrity in a coffee shop, but it felt huge because her mom would have loved it. Rachel didn't know how long she stood there. Time felt weird these days. Everything moved too fast and too slow at the same time. She was vaguely aware that she probably looked crazy. This woman standing on the sidewalk crying while staring into a coffee shop. But she couldn't move, couldn't look away. Then something happened that she didn't expect. Keanu looked up from his book. Their eyes met through the glass. For a second, Rachel thought maybe he'd just look away, go back to his reading. That's what most people did when they saw someone crying. They pretended not to notice, too uncomfortable to get involved. But Keanu didn't look away. He held her gaze for a moment, and even from outside, Rachel could see concern in his expression. He carefully marked his page, set his book down, and stood up. Panic hit her immediately. Oh no, he was getting up. He'd probably seen her staring, and now he was going to tell her to leave him alone or call security or something. Rachel's face burned with embarrassment. This was the last thing she needed. She quickly tried to wipe her tears and started to turn away, ready to hurry down the street and disappear. But before she could take more than a step, she heard the coffee shop door open behind her. "Excuse me," a gentle voice said. "Are you okay?" Rachel turned around slowly, her heart pounding. Keanu Reeves was standing there, no coffee in hand, no phone, just standing there looking at her with genuine concern in his eyes. Up close, he looked tired but kind. There was something about his presence that was calming, like he wasn't in any hurry, wasn't bothered by this interruption to his quiet evening. "I'm so sorry," Rachel stammered, her voice shaky from crying. "I didn't mean to bother you. I'm having a really bad day and I shouldn't have been staring. I'm sorry." She expected him to nod politely, maybe say something nice but generic and then excuse himself. That would have been the normal thing to do. Instead, Keanu stood there studying her face with a gentleness that made her want to cry even harder. "You're not bothering me at all," he said softly. "I saw you out here and you looked really upset. Are you sure you're all right?" There was something about the way he asked. It wasn't the automatic "are you okay" that people say without really wanting an answer. He genuinely wanted to know. And standing there on that cold November evening, looking into the eyes of a stranger who somehow didn't feel like a stranger at all, Rachel felt something shift. Maybe it was the exhaustion from months of grief. Maybe it was the loneliness that had been eating at her, or maybe it was just that sometimes the universe puts the right person in front of you at exactly the right moment. Whatever it was, Rachel found herself being honest. "No," she whispered, fresh tears rolling down her cheeks. "I'm really not okay." Keanu didn't flinch at her honesty. He didn't look uncomfortable or start backing away like so many people did when confronted with real emotion. Instead, he nodded slowly, like he understood something deeper than what she'd actually said. "Would you like to sit down?" he asked, gesturing to a bench just outside the coffee shop. Sometimes it helps to talk, even to a complete stranger. Rachel hesitated. This felt surreal. Was she really about to sit down and talk to Keanu Reeves? Should she? Would he think she was some obsessed fan trying to manipulate him into spending time with her? But looking at his face, she didn't see suspicion or annoyance. Just kindness. "I don't want to take up your time," she said weakly. "You were reading and relaxing and I've already interrupted that." "You're not taking up anything," Keanu replied with a small smile. "Trust me, my book will still be there. And honestly, if someone's hurting, that's more important than any story on a page." They walked to the bench together. Keanu sat down first, leaving plenty of space for her, not crowding her. He still had his coffee, and Rachel noticed his hands wrapped around the cup like he was trying to warm them. It made him seem more human somehow, more real, not a movie star, just a person sitting on a cold bench. Rachel sat down, pulling her jacket tighter. For a moment, neither of them said anything. The silence wasn't awkward, though. It felt patient, like he was giving her time to find her words. "My mom died 3 months ago," Rachel finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Cancer, it happened so fast. One day we were planning a trip for her birthday and then—" She trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. "I'm so sorry," Keanu said quietly. There was weight in those simple words. He wasn't just saying it to be polite. He meant it. "She loved you," Rachel continued, a sad smile crossing her face. "Your movies, your interviews, everything. She always said you seemed like a genuinely good person. She said the way you treated people showed real character." Keanu looked down at his coffee, and Rachel thought she saw something flicker across his face. Sadness, maybe, or understanding. "Your mom sounds like she was special," he said. "She was." Rachel's voice cracked. "She was my best friend. We did everything together, and now I'm just lost. I don't know how to exist in a world where she doesn't." The tears came again, and this time Rachel didn't try to stop them. She'd spent 3 months trying to be strong, trying to hold it together for everyone else. Her dad needed her to be okay. Her friends didn't know what to say anymore. Even her therapist seemed tired of hearing about her pain. But sitting here with this stranger, she felt like she could finally let go. Keanu didn't interrupt. He didn't try to fix it or offer empty platitudes. He just sat there, present and patient, letting her cry. When she finally looked up, wiping her eyes with the sleeve of her jacket, she saw that he was still there, still paying attention, not checking his phone or looking around like he wanted to escape. "I saw you through the window," Rachel admitted. "And all I could think was that my mom would have been so excited. She would have wanted to come in. probably been too nervous to actually talk to you, but she would have loved just seeing you in person. And I can't even share that with her. I can't tell her about this. I can't call her later and hear her get all excited and say, I can't believe you saw him. It's gone. She's gone. And I don't know how to carry all these moments by myself. Keanu was quiet for a long moment, and Rachel worried she'd said too much. Here she was, dumping all her grief on a man who'd just wanted a quiet evening with his book. But when he spoke, his voice was gentle and thoughtful. Can I tell you something? He asked. I've lost people too. People I loved deeply. And I remember feeling exactly what you're describing. That feeling of having all these moments with nowhere to put them. Like you're carrying around this weight and you don't know where to set it down. Rachel looked at him, really looked at him. There was something in his eyes that told her he wasn't just saying this to make her feel better. He knew. He really knew what this felt like. The first thing I want you to know, Keanu continued, is that what you're feeling is completely normal. You're not broken or weak or dramatic. You lost your best friend, the person who knew you better than anyone. That's not something you just get over in 3 months or 6 months or even a year. Give yourself permission to feel this. Everyone keeps telling me I need to move on, Rachel said bitterly, that I need to focus on the good memories and be grateful for the time we had. But I don't want to be grateful right now. I want her back. Then be angry, Keanu said simply. Be sad. Be whatever you need to be. People say things like move on because they don't know what else to say. But grief doesn't follow a timeline. It doesn't care about what other people think you should be doing. Rachel felt something loosen in her chest. For 3 months, everyone had been trying to push her toward happiness, toward acceptance, toward some version of okay that she wasn't ready for. But this man, this stranger, was telling her it was all right to not be all right. My mom used to quote something you said in an interview, Rachel told him. You said something about trying to be kind and treat people well. She lived by that. Even when she was sick, even when she was in pain, she was kind to everyone. The nurses, the other patients, strangers on the street. She never lost that. Keanu smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. She sounds like she was an amazing person. She was, Rachel agreed. And I'm trying so hard to be like her, to carry on that kindness. But some days I'm so angry at the world that I don't want to be kind. I want to scream and break things and ask why this happened to someone so good. Being kind doesn't mean you can't be angry, Keanu said. It doesn't mean you have to be perfect or never have dark thoughts. Your mom was human. She probably had days where she was angry too, where she was tired and frustrated. Being kind is about the choice you make, not about never feeling negative emotions. They sat in silence for a while. The street around them was getting quieter as evening turned to night. A few people walked by, some glancing at them, but no one interrupted. Rachel felt like they were in a bubble, separated from the rest of the world for this moment. I'm scared, Rachel admitted quietly. I'm scared that I'm forgetting her. Little things like the exact sound of her laugh, or the way she'd hum while cooking, they're getting fuzzy. And I hate that. Keanu turned to face her more directly. You're not forgetting her. You're just learning to carry her differently. Those words hit Rachel differently than anything anyone had said in months. Learning to carry her differently. Not moving on, not letting go, just carrying her in a new way. What do you mean? Rachel asked, genuinely curious now instead of just drowning in her sadness. Keanu looked up at the darkening sky like he was choosing his words carefully. When someone we love dies, we think we have to hold on to every single detail or we'll lose them completely. But that's not how it works. The love you shared with your mom, it doesn't live in your perfect memory of her laugh. It lives in who you became because of her. He paused, making sure she was following. Rachel nodded, so he continued. Think about it. You said she taught you about kindness, that she valued treating people well. That's in you now. Every time you choose to be kind, even when you don't feel like it, that's her. Every time you see something beautiful and appreciate it, every time you help someone, every time you choose love over anger, that's her legacy living through you. Rachel felt tears welling up again, but these felt different. Not the heavy, drowning tears of grief, but something lighter. I never thought about it that way, she whispered. I've been so focused on holding on to memories that I didn't realize I'm already carrying her with me. Exactly, Keanu said with a gentle smile. And here's the thing about memories. The really important ones don't fade. The sound of her laugh might get a little fuzzy, sure. But the feeling of being loved by her, the lessons she taught you, the way she made you see the world, that stuff is permanent. That's written into who you are. Rachel thought about her mom's kitchen, the way she'd dance around while cooking dinner, the road trips where they'd sing off-key to old songs, the late-night conversations about everything and nothing. But more than those specific moments, she thought about how her mom made her feel. Safe, loved, seen, valued. "She made me believe I could do anything," Rachel said softly. "Even when I was scared or doubted myself, she'd tell me I was stronger than I knew. And I'd believe her because she believed it so completely." "That's still true," Keanu said. "You're still that person. Her belief in you didn't die with her. She saw something real in you, and that's still there." "But what if I can't do it without her?" Rachel's voice cracked. "What if I'm not as strong as she thought I was?" Keanu leaned back against the bench, his expression thoughtful. "Can I tell you about someone I lost? Someone who meant everything to me?" Rachel nodded, surprised that he was willing to share something so personal. "I had a daughter," Keanu said quietly, and Rachel's heart clenched. She knew some of his story from articles her mom had shown her, but hearing him talk about it directly was different. She was stillborn. "And then 2 years later I lost her mother, my girlfriend, in a car accident." "I'm so sorry," Rachel said, the words feeling completely inadequate. "Thank you," Keanu replied. "It was the darkest time of my life. I thought I wouldn't survive it. Every day felt impossible. I'd wake up and the weight of it would crush me before I even got out of bed." "How did you get through it?" Rachel asked, desperately wanting to know the answer. "Honestly, I'm not sure I did get through it, at least not in the way people think of getting through something. You don't get over losing someone you love. You don't reach some finish line where suddenly everything's okay again. You just learn to live with it. You learn to carry that weight." Rachel absorbed this, realizing how different it was from everything else people had told her. Everyone else promised it would get easier, that time would heal, that she'd move on. But Keanu was being honest. "It doesn't stop hurting. You just learn to live with the hurt." "Does it ever feel lighter?" she asked. "The weight, I mean?" Keanu considered this. "Yes and no. The weight itself doesn't really change, but you get stronger. You learn how to carry it better. And some days are harder than others. Even now, years later, I'll have moments where the grief hits me out of nowhere. Something will remind me of them and it'll take my breath away." "That happens to me," Rachel admitted. "I'll be doing something totally normal, and then I'll smell her perfume on someone walking by. Or I'll hear a song she loved, and it's like I'm right back in that hospital room watching her take her last breath." "Those moments are hard," Keanu agreed. "But here's what I've learned. Those sudden waves of grief, they're not a sign that you're not healing. They're actually a sign of how much love was there. You can't have that kind of grief without having had that kind of love." Rachel had never thought about it that way. Her therapist talked about grief as something to overcome, something to work through and eventually past. But Keanu was describing it as something else entirely. Not a problem to solve, but a testament to love. "My mom used to say that love never dies," Rachel said. "I thought it was just something nice she said. But maybe she was right. Maybe this grief I'm feeling is just love with nowhere to go." "That's exactly what it is," Keanu said, his voice warm with understanding. "Grief is love that has no place to go. But Rachel, I want you to understand something important. That love does have a place to go. It goes into how you live your life. It goes into the kindness you show others. It goes into the choices you make every single day." A couple walked by, glancing at them curiously, probably recognizing Keanu, but he didn't seem to notice or care. His attention was completely focused on Rachel, like she was the only person in the world right now. "Your mom spent her whole life teaching you how to live," Keanu continued. "She showed you what kindness looks like, what strength looks like, what love looks like. And now you get to take all of that and put it into the world? That's not nothing. That's everything." Rachel felt something shifting inside her. For 3 months she'd been stuck in the darkness, unable to see past her pain. But sitting here on this bench talking to this kind stranger who understood loss in a way most people couldn't, she was starting to see a tiny crack of light. "I want to make her proud," Rachel said. "I want to live in a way that honors everything she taught me. But I don't know how to do that when I can barely get out of bed most days." "Start small," Keanu said simply. "You don't have to change the world tomorrow. Just do one small thing. Hold the door for someone, smile at a stranger. Choose kindness in one moment where you could have chosen anger. Your mom's legacy doesn't have to be some grand gesture. It can be in the tiny, everyday choices that add up over time." Rachel nodded, feeling something like hope for the first time in months. It wasn't the overwhelming, crushing pressure to be okay that everyone else had been putting on her. It was just permission to take it one small step at a time. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. The cold was biting now, and Rachel noticed Keanu rubbing his hands together. She felt guilty for keeping him out here in the cold, but he showed no sign of wanting to leave. "Can I ask you something?" Rachel said hesitantly. "How do you stay kind? After everything you've been through, how do you not become bitter or angry at the world?" Keanu smiled, but it was a sad smile. "Who says I don't get angry? I absolutely do. There are days where I'm furious at the universe for taking people I loved, days where nothing makes sense and everything feels unfair. But you still choose kindness," Rachel observed. "People always talk about how kind you are, how you treat everyone with respect. How do you do that when you're hurting?" "Because being kind doesn't mean you're not hurting," Keanu explained. "It just means you've decided that your pain won't turn you into someone who adds more pain to the world." "Does that make sense?" Rachel thought about this. Her mom used to say something similar, that the world had enough anger and cruelty, and the best way to fight that was with kindness. "My mom believed that too," Rachel said. "She'd say that being kind when it's easy doesn't count for much. It's being kind when it's hard that really matters." "Your mom was wise," Keanu said, "and she's right. Anyone can be nice when everything's going well, but choosing kindness when you're struggling, when you're in pain, when the world feels dark, that takes real strength. And from what you've told me about your mom, she had that strength. And so do you." "I don't feel strong," Rachel admitted. "I feel like I'm barely holding it together." "Being strong doesn't mean you never fall apart," Keanu said gently. "It means you keep going even when everything in you wants to give up. You're here, aren't you? You're still trying. That's strength." Rachel felt tears threatening again, but this time they felt different. Less like drowning and more like release. "I miss her so much," she whispered. "Every single day. Every single moment." "I know," Keanu said softly. "And you always will. But Rachel, I need you to understand something. Missing her doesn't mean you're stuck. Grieving doesn't mean you're not moving forward. You can miss her every day for the rest of your life and still build a beautiful life. Those two things can exist together." This idea felt revolutionary to Rachel. Everyone had been treating grief and living as opposite things. Like she had to choose between honoring her mom's memory and moving forward with her life. But Keanu was saying she could do both. "How do I do that?" Rachel asked. "How do I live a full life while carrying this grief?" Keanu turned to face her more directly. "You integrate it. You stop fighting it. Right now you're using all your energy trying to push the pain away, trying to get back to who you were before. But you can't go back. That version of you existed in a world where your mom was alive. You're different now, and that's okay." "I don't want to be different," Rachel said, her voice breaking. "I want to go back to before." "I know," Keanu said with deep understanding. "We all want that when we lose someone. But time only moves forward. So the question becomes, who do you want to be in this new reality? How do you want to carry your mom with you as you move forward?" Rachel wiped her eyes thinking about this question. Who did she want to be? For 3 months, she'd been so focused on what she'd lost that she hadn't thought about what she still had, what she could still become. "I want to be someone she'd be proud of," Rachel said finally. "Someone who makes the world a little better the way she did. Someone who chooses kindness even when it's hard." "Then be that person," Keanu said simply. "Start today. Start right now. Not because you have to, not because you owe it to anyone, but because that's who you want to be." "It feels overwhelming," Rachel admitted. "Like I have to be perfect all the time to honor her memory." Keanu shook his head firmly. "No, that's too much pressure. Your mom didn't expect perfection from you when she was alive, and I promise you, she doesn't expect it now. She just wanted you to be happy, to be kind, to be yourself. Right?" Rachel nodded, remembering all the times her mom had told her exactly that. "Be yourself, honey. That's more than enough. So be yourself," Keanu said. "Be yourself, including the messy, grieving, struggling parts. Those parts are part of your story now. And your story matters." A car drove by, its headlights briefly illuminating them on the bench. Rachel realized they'd been sitting here for nearly an hour. An hour of her life that would be burned into her memory forever. "Thank you," Rachel said, her voice thick with emotion. "You have no idea what this means to me. You could have walked away, could have just nodded politely and gone back to your coffee. But you stayed. You listened. You shared your own pain with me. Why?" Keanu was quiet for a moment, considering his answer. because I remember what it felt like to be where you are. I remember how lonely it was, how isolating grief can be. If I can sit with someone for an hour and make them feel a little less alone, that feels important. That feels worth doing. My mom really admired you, Rachel said with a small smile. She always said you seemed like one of the good ones. I wish I could tell her she was right. Maybe you can, Keanu suggested. Not in the way you used to, obviously. But maybe you can talk to her. Tell her about your day, about what you're thinking, about what you're learning. A lot of people find that helpful. I tried that, Rachel admitted. But it felt stupid. Like I was talking to empty air. It's not stupid, Keanu said firmly. And you're not talking to empty air. You're talking to the part of her that lives in you. The part that shaped who you are. That's real. That matters. Rachel thought about this. Maybe he was right. Maybe the connection wasn't broken, just changed. I have something for you, Keanu said suddenly, reaching into his jacket pocket. He pulled out a bookmark, slightly worn but clearly well-loved. This is from the book I was reading. It has a quote on it that helped me during my darkest times. I want you to have it. Rachel took the bookmark carefully like it was something precious. In the dim light from the coffee shop window, she could just make out the words printed on it. The wound is the place where the light enters you, she read aloud. That's beautiful. It's from Rumi, Keanu explained. It reminded me that our pain, our wounds, they're not just scars to hide. They're places where we can let light in, where we can let love in, where we can learn to be more human. Rachel held the bookmark like it was the most valuable thing in the world. In that moment, it was. This small piece of paper represented something bigger than just a quote. It represented the hour she'd just spent with someone who truly understood her pain, who didn't try to fix her or rush her healing, who just sat with her in the darkness and reminded her that light still existed. I'll keep this forever, Rachel said, her voice barely above a whisper. I'll look at it whenever I feel lost. Good, Keanu said with a warm smile. And Rachel, when you do feel lost, remember what we talked about tonight. You're not alone in this. Millions of people are carrying grief just like you are. Some of them are carrying it well, some are struggling, but we're all doing our best to keep going. They stood up from the bench together. Rachel's legs felt stiff from sitting in the cold for so long, but she didn't care. She would have sat there all night if it meant continuing this conversation. This connection with someone who got it. Before you go, Rachel said, suddenly feeling brave. Can I give you a hug? Keanu smiled, a genuine warm smile that reached his eyes. Of course. He hugged her like a father would hug a daughter who was hurting. Not too tight, but firm enough to feel safe. Rachel closed her eyes and for just a moment let herself feel held. Let herself feel like maybe, just maybe, things would be okay eventually. When they pulled apart, Keanu looked at her seriously. You're going to have hard days ahead. Days where everything we talked about tonight feels impossible to remember. But I want you to promise me something. What? Rachel asked. Promise me that on those really dark days you'll do one kind thing. Just one, it doesn't have to be big. Buy someone's coffee. Compliment a stranger. Help someone carry their groceries. Just one act of kindness in your mom's memory. Can you do that? Rachel nodded, tears streaming down her face again. But these were different tears. Not hopeless tears, but tears of gratitude, of recognition of something that felt almost like hope. I promise, she said. One kind thing every day, especially on the hard days. That's all any of us can do, Keanu said. Just keep choosing kindness, keep choosing love. Keep choosing to honor the people we've lost by living the way they taught us to live. They said their goodbyes, and Keanu went back into the coffee shop to get his book. Rachel stood there for a moment, watching him through the window. He picked up his book, took a sip of what was probably cold coffee by now, and sat back down like nothing unusual had just happened, like he hadn't just changed someone's life with an hour of his time. Rachel started walking home, but this time the walk felt different. The streets didn't feel as cold. The world didn't feel as dark. She pulled out her phone and did something she'd been avoiding for weeks. She opened her photos and looked at pictures of her mom. There she was, smiling at the camera during their last road trip. Another photo from a movie night, both of them making silly faces. A candid shot Rachel had taken of her mom in the garden, surrounded by flowers, looking peaceful and happy. Looking at these photos didn't hurt quite as much as it had before. The grief was still there, sharp and real, but it was accompanied by something else now. Gratitude, love, purpose. When Rachel got home, she sat down at her computer. Her hands hovered over the keyboard for a moment before she started typing. She wrote about what had just happened, about the conversation that had shifted something fundamental in her understanding of grief and healing. She wrote it not for attention or likes, but because she felt like other people needed to hear it. Other people who were drowning in grief and feeling alone. She titled her post simply, "To anyone who's grieving and feels lost." In the post, she talked about meeting Keanu, about how he'd taken time out of his quiet evening to sit with a crying stranger. She wrote about the things he'd said, about grief being love with nowhere to go, about carrying people differently instead of letting them go, about choosing kindness even when everything feels dark. He didn't have to stop, Rachel wrote. He could have looked away, gone back to his book, lived his life. But he chose to sit with someone in pain. He chose to share his own story of loss. He chose to remind me that I'm not alone in this. She ended the post with a challenge. Do one kind thing today, just one. For the person you lost. For the love that's still in your heart. For the world that needs more light. One kind thing. That's all it takes to start healing. Rachel hit post and closed her computer. She didn't expect anything to come from it. She just needed to get the words out, to share what had happened before the feeling faded. But the next morning she woke up to thousands of notifications. Her post had gone viral. People were sharing it, commenting on it, telling their own stories of loss and grief and healing. Strangers were thanking her for writing it, saying it was exactly what they needed to hear. More than that, people were sharing stories about Keanu, dozens, then hundreds of stories about small acts of kindness he'd done, people he'd helped, conversations he'd had, moments where he'd chosen to be present for someone who was struggling. One woman wrote about how Keanu had helped her change a flat tire in the rain. Another talked about how he'd paid for a stranger's meal at a restaurant. Someone else shared a story about him giving up his seat on the subway to an elderly woman. The stories kept coming, painting a picture of a man who consistently chose kindness even when no one was watching. But Rachel's favorite comments were from other people who were grieving. They thanked her for sharing, for reminding them they weren't alone. Some said they'd tried the One Kind Thing challenge and it had actually helped. Others just wanted to share their own stories of loss and healing. Rachel read through the comments with tears in her eyes. But this time they were good tears. Healing tears. She realized that by sharing her story, by being vulnerable about her pain, she'd created a space for others to share theirs. And in doing that, she was honoring her mom's legacy of kindness and connection. Over the following weeks, Rachel kept her promise. Every day, especially on the hard days, she did one kind thing. Some days it was as simple as smiling at someone who looked sad. Other days it was bigger, like volunteering at a local shelter or helping a neighbor with their groceries. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, things started to shift. The grief didn't disappear. It probably never would, but it became more manageable. It became integrated into who she was, rather than something that was destroying her. Rachel started a blog sharing her journey through grief and healing. She wrote about her mom, about the lessons she'd learned, about the daily practice of choosing kindness. The blog grew, connecting her with people all over the world who were on similar journeys. She never forgot that November evening. The bookmark Keanu had given her stayed on her bedside table, a constant reminder of the conversation that had changed everything. On her hardest days, she'd read the quote again. The wound is the place where the light enters you. And she'd remember that her grief wasn't something to overcome or defeat. It was proof of love. It was her mom's final gift, teaching her that even in the darkest moments, there's still light. There's still kindness. There's still hope. Rachel's mom had taught her how to live with love and kindness. And on a cold November evening, a kind stranger had reminded her how to carry that lesson forward, even in the face of devastating loss. The wound had become the place where light entered, and Rachel was learning day by day to let that light shine through,